Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another bonus episode of Warp, the completely unnecessary Star Trek podcast, where normally we do unasked for audio commentaries of Star Trek episodes, but tonight we go inside Picard. My name is Sean.
My name is Matt.
I'm Jake. And I'm Minwin.
Back together again, folks, for episode 7 of Picard, Star Trek Picard. Nepenthe.
Star Trek
Picard.
You know, did you guys know? You guys, Sean, did you notice that some people say Nepenthe and some people say Nepenthe? Like some people pronounce the H on this episode and some people don't.
I did not notice.
It's like when some people say Los Feliz and some people say Los Feliz, and you're like, I don't.
You say Nepenthe,
right?
I say Nepenthe.
Exactly right. There's a lot of vomiting in this episode.
There's a lot. More than the average episode of Picard.
More than the average episode of television. 2 separate occasions of vomiting in this episode. Sean, how many times watching this episode? So when did you watch this? As we're recording this, it came out yesterday.
I watched it last night. How
many times, I know you to be a crier, how many times did this episode make you a little bit teary?
I didn't cry. I didn't cry once in this episode.
It's okay to cry.
Did you even a little teary?
A little bit, a little choked up a couple of times, but I don't ever cry. I was actually expecting to be more emotional about it because like I was reading all the stuff online and everyone was like, oh, I'm just blubbering the whole time. And I was like, oh God, it's just going to choke me up. But there were a couple of moments.
That's very interesting. It's a little off-brand for you.
Yeah, it's true.
And I wrote down 6 separate occasions during the course of the episode where I got a little choked up watching.
Oh man, this was
the episode. I mean, honestly, this was the episode that like everyone was waiting.
This is the one everybody was waiting for.
You know, because it was like you've had him interact with Hugh, which was great, but it was still a one-off character on the show. And you've had him interact with 7 of 9, who's on a different show.
Right. They didn't even know They were never in the show together before now. To have him actually interact with Riker and Troy, and it was just like, like you said online, I could watch them just sit there and eat pizza and talk for episodes and episodes and episodes. We'll get into it, but like, there's just great scenes where both Troy and Riker really sort of they dress him down in very specific ways, which is awesome. Like they don't just sort of adhere to everything because he's Picard, you know. They talk to him like a real person. It's great. Yeah, my comment on Twitter was that I would watch a show called 2 Guys, a Girl, and Pizza in Space because that's essentially what like 75% of this episode is just them hanging out and talking, and it's great. I'd watch 10 more hours of those 3 hanging out on Pretty Garden Planet and.
Are they catching up? Are they like talking about like?
Well, let's get into it. Let's get into the plot.
So first, this episode.
Renton,
go ahead.
You do? Am I doing it, or are you doing it?
Go ahead.
Who's doing what today, Sean?
Well, you go ahead. I'll just do my normal, where I just say a lot.
Sorry, it's you. You opened the show. It's your show. You do the credits.
Directed by Douglas Arniakowski. I think that's how you say his name. Something like that. Written by, is it Sarah? What was I can't write my own writing.
This is why I do it.
Yeah. Michael Chabon and
Samantha Humphrey and Michael Chabon
there you go.
wrote this episode. Yeah. And I don't know how to pronounce that guy's last name either. Arniakowski.
Something like that. It's Anyways,
Doug, if you're listening.
How do you think this episode starts there, men?
Dream sequence, flashback, dream flashback, flash dream.
It was, and it's interesting. Remember, I had said that this would be a flashback. I called it an episode early, but I said that that we would see the flashback where we saw what Dr. Girardi and evil Vulcan Commodore O talked about that caused Girardi to kill Bruce Maddox, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna see that.
Yes.
That's what we see.
When we were watching episode 5 and she kills him at the end, you correctly predicted. I bet we'll see a flashback where we learn, because she says in that scene, I wish you didn't know what I know or what they showed me. And you predicted accurately that at some point we would see what she was talking about. And that's what this is.
Right.
So anyways, so we're at the Daystrom Institute.
Go ahead, John.
And it starts the same way. Commodore O walks up to her. She's got her little earbuds in her ears. And she says, I heard you were talking to Picard. You saw him twice. Although this seemed weird to me. You may have to. Didn't she go see him at the vineyard after having met with her?
No,
because when she goes to does she go to the vineyard and then go back a second time?
Oh, now now that you say that, yeah, you're right.
Because when she goes to the vineyard is when she tells him there's one thing I didn't tell them.
I already talked. Yeah, when she goes to the vineyard, she's already talked to
right.
Commodore.
That's what I thought.
Oh, right. That didn't even occur to me. Good job. Well spotted, Sean.
They screwed up the time. Yeah, okay.
I mean, unless they did that on purpose and there's some other thing going on that we don't know about. But yes, you're absolutely correct. Because what Commodore O says is, we already know, because we've been following you, that you've talked to Admiral Picard and that you've told him blah, blah, blah about Bruce Maddox. And then you downloaded a bunch of shit to Picard, all of your research, and then you went and saw him in France, which you're right. That does not match up with what we saw earlier.
Right. Yeah.
And she says to her, Commodore O says, look, you're not in trouble, but Picard is going to go on this mission. He's gone off book and he's going to go and do his own thing. And we want you to go too and sort of be our spy, our man on the inside, as it were. And she's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go off world. Like, I'm not into that idea. She kind of hints that she's never even been in space.
Yeah, she says, I've never been. Which
made me wonder, like, how many people do you think there are in like the Federation who never go into space?
Just live on Earth and never go.
Yeah, or whatever planet you're born on. Because it seems like going into space is very common, right? People are
right.
Mars, or even if you don't go like into deep space, just traveling around sort of your local solar system,
right,
seems like a pretty common thing.
Yeah, there's like there's like a city on the moon in Star Trek time, and there's stuff on Mars. Yeah,
I could see people like staying just like planet side. There are people in the world nowadays who don't even take airplanes.
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
there's people in this world that have never left the town they live in.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
I mean, my parents are a good example. I mean, they've been on planes and they travel, but both of my parents have lived in the same, born and have lived their entire lives and will almost certainly die within a 10-mile radius of where they grew up.
Yeah, that's wild.
They just, and that was a lot more common, I think. I guess that was a lot more common when our parents were young than it is now. But lots of people don't have the thing that we all have of, I got to get out of this place.
Right.
When you're growing up in Fresno, as you're like, I'm getting out of here the second I can.
Well, it's one of those
big city.
It's like Jake and I are both from Indio. You either leave or you don't leave.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if
those are the two choices. Right.
Well, no, but I mean, like, there's so many people that they thought about leaving and they didn't. They waited too long, and then you just get stuck there.
I mean, even if you get out, a piece of you always stays.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can take the boy out of the Indio, but you can't take the Indio out of the boy. I think that's probably true.
Our therapists have all tried.
Chipping away.
So anyway, she's talking to Girardi and she says, look,
we need you to go and spy on Picard for us. And Girardi's like, why would I do that? Commodore O is like, let me show you
Open your mind.
What the stakes are. And Commodore O mind melds with Dr. Girardi.
Yeah.
Which is a real, like, in the sort of lore or canon of Star Trek, mind melding with someone's without their consent is a real no-no. Like, it's akin to
thing, yeah.
like it's akin to almost like a sexual assault. Like, it's real invasive to do this to somebody who's non-consenting
that you haven't asked. But it is there was, like, I know, a matter of debate about whether or not Commodore O was a Vulcan or not. This seems to confirm that she's at least part Vulcan.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Can Romulans mind meld? You would think I would know this as a
they've never shown them. I don't think they've ever shown them do it.
I can't think of any time I've ever seen it. Anyway, she mind melds. I don't know the answer to that. That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Someone nerdier than us might know the answer. The canonical
listeners,
answer.
Send it out to tweet.
Post it on Twitter us or Twitter us at
Twitter us. Twitter us.
Send angry emails to warpedthepodcast@gmail.com.
You can mail us your scrawled scribe under a
just your cutout magazine letters.
That'd be sort of cool, actually. That I would think, like, wow, someone's really taken a lot of time to piece this together.
I mean, there's no such thing as bad publicity, so
sure.
Hate mail is just as good as positive mail.
Bring the hate mail. We love it.
I mean, remember, it's internet rules. So
I would love to know that anybody
cared enough to hate us.
That cared enough to hate us. Sean, what does she see when she mind melds with
a lot of real quick stuff that in my sort of late night, it was sort of hazy. There was one thing, the destruction of the Earth blowing up.
Yes.
Was really the most important thing, I think, that we saw.
Yes. It's a lot of horrible shit happening, planets exploding and all manner of disaster.
But we know that she's kind of a quote unquote bad guy, though, right? Because
yes,
she's definitely
on her own
with the Romulans.
Yes,
but would your suspicion be that it's just a baseless image, somewhat, that's only being used to manipulate her?
Or do you think she's gotten it from somewhere? The vision.
It's unclear because
usually it definitely could be either.
Usually, the way mind melds work is that you can share your own personal memories with someone, right? That's usually what mind melds are used for. You will see my history and I will see yours.
Yeah, and you can share feelings and stuff.
This shit that Commodore O is doing hasn't happened yet.
Right.
So it can't be a memory. So it's some kind of implanted, prediction or some sort of implanted thought that, as far as we know, doesn't have necessarily any basis in reality, right? Because she's showing her images of things that have not happened, which is not usually how the whole mind meld thing works.
Right. But her reaction to it is so, like, immediately believes that it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, mind melds are very convincing.
They're very powerful, yeah.
Which leads you to believe that either it's such a strong manipulation that it worked that well, or there's something about the visions and the way her mind melded that made her believe that it was true, outside of it just being a manipulation.
Yeah, sure. And it's also unclear what the motivations are. Especially what Commodore O's motivation is. Like, she might genuinely think that she's doing the right thing and that she's making these difficult decisions in order to serve the greater good.
Well, whether the Earth is being destroyed and that's what she's trying to stop, she has a point.
And if she genuinely believes that, then that's one way to look at it. If she's just evil and is just fucking with everyone for her own purposes, remains to be revealed. I'm sure we will get an answer to that. And there's only 3 episodes left. Right. I think things are going to start paying off.
You would hope they're going to save it all for season 2.
No, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to pay it off because I don't think they didn't know they were going to get a season 2.
Right. Sure. And filmed it before that happened.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be a relatively self-contained story when you get to that.
Just real quick, when we're about to get to the scene Picard here, we've talked about how he looks good, but he looks very old. And
he looks great for a 79-year-old man.
He looks just the same as he did on Next Generation.
Incorrect.
Since this week we are recording the first episode of Next Generation. I watched
Me too. I watched.
Oh, you watched the episode. You watched?
Yeah, I did because I wanted to.
Yep.
Yeah,
I've seen part 1.
And it was like, wow, he is so. And where it really made is his voice.
Yes,
his voice is so much weaker now than it was back then.
Interesting.
Like, that's where the age really hits you. Not that you'll be able to tell Min because we're going to watch it without the sound on.
I told Min before you got on the call, Sean, I told Min he needed to, that I recommended that he watch it beforehand. Because I think that because we're going to be spending a lot of time in the world of Next Generation for the next significant chunk of the next couple of years, is going to be a lot of Next Generation.
Oh, yeah.
I said everyone should watch it for real.
Yeah.
As just sort of a like baseline so that sort of how people sound when they talk and what they're
right.
Especially for, somebody like Aaron who's never seen it it's just helpful to have at least. It's sort of like when how when you were in college and you would like carbo load before you would go out to like really
party.
Get hardcore drunk, and you just wanted like a base of carbs in your stomach,
soak up the booze.
So you just go into like the Hedrick dining hall and just eat like a pound of pasta before it was time to go to a party or whatever.
Well, I was unsure about watching the episode before now, but yeah, let's get it on.
Well, and I think the other thing, like,
also, it's a really good episode, and it's all the characters and
Next Generation is a much more interesting show than original series is too. But the other thing is the relationships are a lot more complicated on Next Generation than they ever were on original series. Right? The characters in original series, their relationship to each other is they're all just work friends. There is no other layer to their relationship. Where there's a lot of that in Next Generation. And if you're not going to be able to follow it at all. It would be good if you had that baseline so that when we're watching the episodes, you're not constantly thinking, well, wait, why are they doing this and why are they doing that? Because we'll start talking about the show too much.
I agree entirely. And the person who really needs to hear this is Erin, and she'll never hear this, and she would never do it, even if she was hearing it. So
I have told
this
her
will all be lost
on her. She should watch the episodes that, and not only for
I think just watch the first one.
At least watch
just
the
to
first
get
one.
Who the characters are, what their relationships are to each other, and then from then on, if you don't want to watch it, fine. That first season is pretty terrible anyway. So, but that first episode's
good.
Yeah.
I dare say that the relationships in the original series, though, are there. I don't think they're necessarily shown on screen or sort of like depicted on screen, but I got a sense that there were bonds and friendships between those characters.
Of course, there were friendships and bonds, but they didn't have any impact on any of the plot lines of the show.
It's just the difference between the way they told stories on TV in the 60s and the way they told stories on TV in the 80s.
Yeah.
So it goes from being about a group of fellow employees, co-workers, and it becomes about Next Generation is about a family. Like those characters become a family,
which we will get into this episode
tomorrow.
Much of a family
tomorrow when we record Encounter at Farpoint.
And in this episode, we see how that family has progressed.
Yes, we're now 30 minutes into this, and we're still on the first. Just in case you were wondering about how the timing was going to work out.
Yeah, we're doing very well. We're tracking perfectly.
Yes.
So Commander Og does the mind meld and freaks Jurati out. Jurati says, "Okay, what can I do? What do you want me to do?" And she's like, Commander O is like, "First, eat this triangular thing that I'm holding in my hand."
Oh no, she ate a thing.
She holds out a little like triangular. It's about the size of a four-sided die, Min.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like a little tiny pyramid.
Except flat. And Jurati puts it in her mouth, and the Commodore's like, you have to bite into it or it doesn't work.
Chew it.
Yeah, so she like crunches, and you hear this like crunching sound. It was gross, kind of gross. I thought. I was like, I would not want to eat that thing.
Yeah, it looked all metallic, and I mean, it's like
nanorobots.
A tracker.
And it's some kind of tracker that will allow them to find Jurati no matter where she is.
So they can keep tabs on Picard wherever he goes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, and she says, "What do I have to do?" And Commodore O is like, "It's going to require horrible sacrifice for you," which we now know is referring to her having her lover, Doctor.
Yeah.
I just read the Star Trek Picard prequel novel that they published a couple of weeks ago called The Last Best Hope, which gives you all kind of backstory on everything that's happened before the show started. And you get a lot of Bruce Maddox and Agnes Jurati and their love
their relationship.
Yeah, exactly. He was like her mentor. She was his student, blah, blah, blah.
It's a little 50 Shades, it sounds like.
Yeah, it wasn't like that, but there was no bondage or anything.
Well, there was chemical bondage.
And I just realized my mic doesn't have my little like foam thingy on it because I left it in the other room. Should I go and get it, or does it make a difference?
You've been sounding okay. Anybody noticed any pops?
Yeah, I don't hear any pops.
Okay.
So we go up to La Serena, Sean.
Yes.
And what's happening up there?
They're caught in a tractor beam at the Borg cube, because when we last saw them, they were at the Borg cube, and Picard and Soji had jumped through the transporter to Nepenthe and told them, go meet us there, and they're trying to leave, but the Borg cube has got them in a tractor beam.
But I thought Hugh ran that cube, and
well, the Romulans have, with Soji escaping, the Romulans, Rizzo and the Romulans have sort of taken over.
It's like a coup.
Yeah, sort of. They're trying to escape. They're trying to get Rafi. Rafi's trying to hack the tractor beam to try to turn it off, and eventually they do. They flash to the Borg cube, and you've got Elnor and Hugh, right, who had stayed back to fight. Hugh is being punished by Rizzo, saying, what did he go? What did you help him? Why did you, talking about Picard and Soji, and he's like, I'm not going to tell you anything. She's like, fuck it, I'm bored. Kill them all. And then has the Romulans basically slaughter all of the XBs.
Oh, Jesus.
Sorry, I went and got my little foam condom because I didn't feel comfortable not having it on this microphone.
Matt wants to be a professional, damn it.
I felt unsafe.
Get the coronavirus that way.
And then she tells him to kill them all.
Rizzo's name is Narissa. Right? Yeah. That's her Romulan. They called her Lieutenant Rizzo when she was pretending to be a Starfleet person. Yeah. But now they're calling her Narissa.
Right.
And they've got a bunch of the XBs kind of lined up.
Right.
And they've got a bunch of gunmen, sort of like there's a firing line. And she's like threatening Hugh. She's like, tell me where Picard and Soji went, because you were with them and now they're gone and you're still here. Meanwhile, Sean, were you thinking, where's Elnor? Like, Elnor was slicing heads off the last time we saw him.
Right. He pops in eventually, but
but it's like, why isn't he in this
with you? Right.
How did they get separated? Like they never quite explained that, why they're not together in this scene. Because you would think that Elnor would have stuck by Hugh and helped him, but he doesn't.
No, I think once you get Elnor going, he's like a Roomba. He's like killing, like a Kill Bill death Roomba.
Slaughtering.
He just goes from corner to corner.
Hunting.
Killing people.
Scaring cats and murdering.
Slaughtering Romulans.
That's in my mind is.
So she's like, tell me what the fuck is going on. Where did you go? Where did they go? And Hugh, to his credit, refuses to tell her.
Honorable, nice.
Does Elnor pop in now and say?
Oh, then she fucking murders all the.
She murders all the XPs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Except Hugh, right? Hugh is alive.
Right. Yeah,
okay.
She kills all of his refugees that he's to save.
And then Elnor pops in and says,
then he's like crying. Well, first you see Narek getting on his little ship, right?
He hops in a ship.
A little scene where Narek is like climbing onto like a little Romulan fighter ship and getting ready to fly away.
So it's Narek and his sister is Narissa.
Yeah, Narek and Narissa.
Okay. Right.
Up in the attic, remember?
Right.
Yes.
They seem like they spend some time
picking those flowers.
Picking those flowers.
Picking flowers in the attic.
So she kills all of his buddies.
Yeah.
And then she's kind of got him. She's like, I can't kill you. And then they just kind of leave him. And he's crying. It's really sad. It was really sad. He's sort of hunched down over the bodies of these people that he was trying to save. And he's crying. And she's like, I don't have any use for you because you're not going to tell me what I want and I can't kill you. So they just kind of leave. Mm. And then Elnor shows up. After they've all gone, Elnor comes in. And it's like, well, where the hell were you when all this was going on? We could have used you right here, Elnor. This was kind of a horrible thing that just happened. And you're supposed to be this badass warrior nun. But you missed the boat on this one. Elnor comes in and he's sort of.
And how is he? Is he nonchalant? Is he emotional?
No, he's very upset. He feels upset that he was late.
Yeah, gotcha.
And meanwhile, up on the ship, they're ready to go. Did you guys talk about that they got released?
Well, we say that they do get released and they take off, and then Narek chases.
Their whole thing is well, we don't need the shit. We don't need to hold them because we're gonna track that. Narek's gonna track them, right? So she says, "Let them go." So suddenly they're free, and they don't know why, but they're happy to be free. And so they call down to Elnor, and they're like, because Jurati is like, hey, what about Elnor? Anybody remember Elnor? And so they call Elnor, and he's on the board cube, and Elnor's like, I'm staying here.
Yeah, I got to stay here.
Hugh needs me, and I have to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. So I'm going to stay here on the board cube. And meanwhile, up on the La Serena, they're all just like, that's a strange choice, but okie dokie. Yep. They're like, you're crazy. And then Dr. Freddy's like, I think it's brave. And they're like, yeah, and you're brave. So anyway, he's going to stay behind. The rest of the gang
are all going getting Nepenthe.
They're going to fly. They shoot off into warp speed to go to Nepenthe, and we see another ship, which we know is Narek's little ship, shoots off into warp space, following
behind them.
And that's the opening credits. We've arrived at the opening credits.
Wow, 46 minutes.
45 minutes to get there.
And my pizza is here, and I have to go.
45 minutes into this episode, and we've arrived at the opening credits. Bye, Jake.
I have a few more minutes.
Oh, okay.
You can eat pizza on the podcast, all right?
To be fair, it was a long cold open.
It was a bit of a. There's a lot
about
going.
20. It was about 20.
More happens in the cold opening than really happens in the rest of the episode. As far as plot wise, most of the rest of the episode is just Picard, Riker, and Troy hanging out.
Sure. Well, now we're getting to the good stuff, though.
Right.
When
which is the good stuff.
Good. So they come back from the credits, and it's Nepenthe, and Nepenthe is this beautiful sort of garden planet. It looks gorgeous. Did you guess where the well, we'll get to it in a minute.
I think I know what the question is, and I got it. I figured it out at the end of the episode.
Picard and Soji beam in because they've escaped in that magic super transporter at
Supercell.
And they are confronted by a girl. What is she, 12, 13 looking?
She's somewhere in that range, yeah.
She's all dressed up like an Indian kind of, or a Native American, First Nations type person. She's got a bow and arrow. And she's like, stick them up. And Picard's like, you're Kestra, and I already know you're not really a problem. Soji's like, I thought this planet was supposed to be nice. And Picard's like, chill out. This is fine.
Is that Troy and Riker's little baby?
Their daughter, yes.
Their daughter?
It is.
Because Picard's like, are your mom and dad here? And she's like, oh, okay. You know mom and dad. Come with me. Which I guess is all you have to say. Is
right.
All your mom and dad here. And
well, she knew who he was because he says who he is, doesn't he? Does he not say he's...
Yeah, well, they find... There's this conversation where they're kind of walking along. The three of them are walking to the house.
Right.
And Soji and the girl whose name is Kestra. Did you catch the Kestra reference? It's a pretty deep cut. There's an episode of The Next Generation where Troy learns that her mother, Lwaxana, had another daughter.
Oh.
Sort of a late season. I think it might be season 6 or 5. There's an episode where Lwaxana comes on the ship and Troy learns that Lwaxana had another daughter who died when an older daughter who died when Troy was a baby. And that girl was named Kestra. This character is named after Deanna's sister. Correct. So Kestra and Soji are walking along. Picard is sort of walking behind them. Kestra shows Soji a compass. She's got like an old timey, point north compass that she uses for,
she hunts and stuff.
Yeah, they're like, it's very out in the middle of the forest, like where.
So the bow isn't like a toy bow. It's like she's meant to be like.
She's got a real bow and arrow, and she threatens him. And Picard's like, she points it at his heart, and Picard's like, my heart is made out of metal because
you're gonna point it there.
At one point in the past, Picard had a heart transplant, so he has an artificial heart. Picard's like, my heart's made out of metal, so if you really want to kill me, you point it at my head. And she does, and it's like a little joke. It's fun. So they're walking along, and Picard, Soji and Kestra are talking, and Kestra's like, "Who is that old man? Is he your grandpa? Is he your dad?" Soji's like, "I don't really know who he is, but he claims to know my father." And Kestra's like, well, who's your father? And Picard's like, well, your father was an android named Data.
Yeah, a good friend of mine, Data.
Soji kind of freaks out because Soji didn't know she was an android until that moment. Picard kind of stuck his foot in his mouth in that.
But it was written that way.
Yeah. No, sir. I mean, it's not Patrick Stewart's fault.
He's just, right. No. That's Stewart chose to do that.
He's reciting the dialogue he was given. He tells Soji about Daj. He's like, I knew your sister. He's like, not all of your memories are fake. Because what's happening is she's freaking out because she thinks everything is fake now because she got betrayed in the last episode by Narek, who she thought she could trust. So now she doesn't trust anybody. She doesn't trust Picard. She doesn't trust
She learned that, she just recently learned that most of her memories are fake.
Right.
She doesn't exist more than 3. She hasn't existed for more than 3 years. So she doesn't believe anything at this point in time.
Picard tells her, your sister, a lot of your things that have happened to you are not real, but your sister was real. I knew her and she came to me for help and she died but I'm here to help you. And then they sort of wander up to the house, and this was the question I was going to ask Sean. Sean, did you recognize that house?
I didn't until the end, but I did recognize it before the end of the episode. Yeah.
I didn't recognize it at all.
Really?
Stan said, I think that's the house from The Great Outdoors.
It is, yeah.
Oh, really?
It's on the Universal backlot.
It's on the Universal backlot, and they take you by it if you're on the studio tour, if you're on the like tram tour. I didn't remember it at all, but Stan was like, "That looks like the Great Outdoors House to me," and I was like, "Yeah, you're right." I think
why I know it. There's the last shot was like right before Picard and spoiler alert, when Picard and Soji get beamed away at the end of the episode. Troy and Riker and Kestra are kind of standing in the doorway on the steps there.
Yes.
There's that. I have a picture of my wife and her brother and my 2 kids standing in that exact same spot. So I was like, oh, that's the Great Outdoors House.
Is that the movie with John Candy?
Yes, and Dan Aykroyd.
Gotcha.
So anyway, well spotted.
Yes.
Sean and Stan. I would not have recognized it. They come up to the house, and who do we see but our good old pal, Deanna Troi?
Yeah.
This was the first moment where I got a little teary-eyed.
Yeah.
I wrote cry number 1 in my notes.
This was the moment. This was why I got choked up here. This was one of my choked up moments. My 2 choked up moments both had to do with Deanna Troi.
Yeah. She kind of looks up and she sees them, and they're so happy to see each other, and they sort of embrace and they hug, and it was great. It was just really sweet and lovely. And she's an empath, right, Min? So she can sense people's emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So she kind of like, after they hug, she kind of looks at him and she's like, "Oh, you're in trouble. Something's going on with you." And he's like, "Yeah, I kind of need help." Mm-hmm. And then we see good old Will Riker, Jonathan Frakes.
Cooking.
He's in the kitchen. He's like, he's got a chunk of mozzarella cheese in his hand, or not mozzarella, it's Parmesan cheese, and he's grating it on the grater.
Cooking.
He's listening
Stupid
to
sexy
jazz.
Riker.
He's listening to jazz music.
Of course he
always
is.
does.
Oh my God.
Riker loves jazz.
Doesn't he play the sax? Who plays the sax?
Trombone. He plays the trombone.
Oh, that's right.
You're almost right. And he's like, "What's going on out there?" And then
Esther comes in. He's all, "Dad, what do you need?"
Yeah, and he's like, I can't hear you. And then Picard's like, "Hey, Will," and Will turns around, and Picard and Riker see each other.
The smile on Jonathan Frakes' face was just magic.
That was cry number 2.
I was still choked up from the first one, so I sort of blended as one whole moment there.
I think that both of them are terrific in this episode.
Oh, they are.
Marina Sirtis and Jonathan Frakes are both great in this episode.
Both of them got. Well, I think generally, I would think in the people, and especially Jonathan Frakes, people gave him shit, I think, a lot as being an actor, right? On original generation.
I can remember back in the day people thinking that Troy was a terrible character.
Sure, her too. Yeah,
I've come around a lot on Troy.
But they both were great in this episode.
Yeah, really, really, really good.
Yeah.
So they hug. There's a lot of hugging in this episode. A lot of hugging, a lot of throwing up, a lot of. Oh,
we haven't gotten to any throwing up yet.
Well, we haven't gotten yet.
When does Girardi throw up the first time? It's when after the mind meld. We missed one of the.
Oh, that's right. She throws up
after the mind meld, where she sees the visions of the future. She throws up.
Okay.
So vomit number 1 is in the books.
Yes.
Picard and Riker hug. They're so happy to see each other. They love each other so much. Riker's like, "You're in trouble," and then he goes, "Shields up," and they literally live in like a log cabin in the middle of the woods. But as soon as Riker says "shields up," you hear the computer going, "Shields activated."
And it's like the whole thing
is like, oh, he's got like a total like smart house. You know?
Yeah, it's all like you might want to check
scans and
check cloaking as well. And he's like, "Oh, set cloaking scan, computer."
Yeah.
Wow.
So Romulans.
Riker's house is decked out.
Yeah, it is. He's all. We've had some trouble with some. Whatever, I can't remember what there's.
Yeah, he says we've had trouble with the Kazenti, which are those cat looking aliens from the cartoon
series. Yeah,
Aaron would have big problems with this right here.
So
they have a scene where they sort of talk, and Riker's like, "What's going on?" And
because he tells him, he's all, when he tells him the cloaking, he's like, "Oh, Romulans." And he's like, "What did I tell you when you went on the Romulan plan that I'd have an ass full of Romulans the rest of my life," or something like that.
Wait, did you say an ass full of Romulans?
That's what he said. Ass deep in Romulans.
What he says is, Riker says to him, "Do you remember what I said to you when you decided to go on the mission to save all of the Romulans?" And Picard's like, "That I would be ass deep in Romulans for the rest of my life." And Riker's like, "Yep." And also that no good deed goes unpunished. Yeah. So they're having a little moment there.
Wow.
Troy comes in. Troy says Kestra took Soji to clean up, and I can't read her emotions. She's like, Troy's like, she looks human, she acts human, but I can't read her at all. She's not really human, is she? And Picard's like, gulp. Because he still kind of doesn't want to get them involved, so he's trying not to tell them.
Plausible deniability type of situation. You don't want to tell them too much.
And then Troy and Riker both tell him, this was cry number 3 for me, was they both tell him, you can stay as long as you need to, whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. Yeah. You sort of hear a little bit of the Next Generation music playing in the background, and it's just like, oh, these guys.
They're back together.
These guys.
Yeah.
If you don't love these guys, I don't want to know you.
Yeah. And it was so great watching this episode and Encounter at Farpoint at the same time. Just seeing this great rainbow, where they started to where they get to was great. It was really great timing for us.
Do you think they're going to meet Geordi, Worf, any of the rest of the old crew?
None of them have been announced, so I'm guessing no. I mean, every other character that they've announced has shown up at this point in time.
Yeah. Well, except for Whoopi Goldberg.
Well, she was invited to do season 2.
She's going to be in season 2.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We have not seen Will Wheaton on this show.
No, and I don't think we're going to.
He hosts the after show, which I haven't watched any of the.
Oh, I didn't know there was one. Yeah.
Yeah, they do one of those Walking Dead
type things,
post show recaps, but I haven't watched any of them. But he's the host of that. I have to refresh my beverage. Sean, do you want to talk about Kestra and Soji while Kestra is taking a shower?
Yeah, watching Soji take a shower.
Yeah, I have to refresh myself too. So you and Jacob are on.
Just really quick while they're gone. What as a fan of Grease, what's your opinion about the name change for Rizzo?
I didn't really even notice. I mean, I noticed that they were calling her Narissa. I thought that Rizzo was a nickname. I did whatever. Didn't.
Okay, not an emotional beat for you. Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to make
wasn't
sure.
They took away my Grease. No, I did not have that. I did not have that feeling. No. Okay. Sorry.
Because of you, more people who enjoy Grease watch this than Star Trek fans. So I thought I'd bring that up.
Well, I appreciate that. And they're having a conversation. Kestra, I believe she starts talking in another language at this point in time. And she's telling her a story. I think this is where
okay. I'm back. What did I miss?
So Kestra and Soji are talking.
Recap the recap, Sean.
Soji's taking a shower, and this is where Kestra starts talking in a funny language.
Yeah, well, they talk about Data. She's like, do you like Sherlock Holmes? Do you she's asking you? She's trying to figure out how close she is to Data. She's like, do you have mucus? Do you have
that's right. Yeah,
do you have sweat? And she's like, yeah, I have all of those things. She's like, well, Data didn't have any of these things. And Soji's like, how do you know so much about Data? And Kestra's like, my parents talk about life on the Enterprise apparently all the time because Kestra knows everything about what Data was like and what life on the Enterprise was like. So apparently they talk about it a lot.
That's a lot of intimate detail to be sharing with your daughter, though. Like, oh, yeah, he had no sweat glands and he had mucus and he was fully functional.
Yeah, he was fully functional. He was fully functional.
He was fully functional. We'll see that pretty soon.
That's very second episode.
Yeah, it's second episode. We learned that. Data fucks. Data fucks. I mean, I don't know how else to say.
He bangs.
He bangs.
He does.
Soji's like, why are you asking me all these questions about what I'm like? And she's like, and Kestra's like, because Data's whole deal was that he always wanted to be human. He could do all of these amazing things, but
he would have given it all away to be human.
He wanted to know how to tell a joke, and he wanted to know how to ballroom dance, and which is all kind of references to old things that we saw on the old show. Then we get Troy tells Picard, you have to take a nap. You can sleep in Thad's room, right? So we see a little scene where Troy takes Picard into Thad's room, and Thad is their older son, who we learn has died. We learn in this scene has sort of passed away. And so Troy and Picard have this like scene in Thad's bedroom where they talk about the made up language, and the son liked to make up languages. Kestra kind of speaks in this made up language that they like. And
she doesn't. Yeah, Troy doesn't know one of them, but she speaks in one of the other ones.
Yeah, and this was cry number 4 for me. This is a really great little scene between Marina Sirtis and Patrick Stewart, because they're talking about like the fact that Thad has died, and it would have been his 18th birthday. And Picard's like, I'm so sorry, and I just wanted to. I'm so sorry to drag you into this. I don't want to put any of you in danger. And
she tells something about
like, we will do anything we can to help you, but I'm so scared that anything might happen to Kestra. And she's like, I'm not as brave as I used to be, Jean-Luc. Which I thought that was really like, I liked that line.
We can all relate to that.
She's had these children, and she's gotten older, and she's not the sort of adventurous Starfleet person that she used to be.
Especially she's lost one child, like she just can't lose another one.
And Marina Sirtis knocks it out of the park in this scene. She's so good. She's almost, but not quite, crying, which is like feels like a really hard thing to do as acting wise. She's right on the verge of crying, but never quite does. Like she's keeping it together. It's a great little scene. And Picard's like, I totally get it. As soon as I figure out what my next move is going to be, we'll be out of here. We don't want to cause any trouble for you and Riker and Kestra. It was a very sweet little touching scene, I thought. Yeah. They show a picture of Picard holding Thad as a baby.
Yeah, he says something about, I only saw him once. She said, no, you saw him twice. And then she shows him the picture.
Yeah, and you saw him when he was brand new. We go back to the Serena.
Yes.
They're being tracked. Everywhere they go, Narek is following them. They don't know
who it is, but there's a ship following them.
Everywhere they go, there's the ship following them. And they can't figure out why. We know it's because Dr. Girardi swallowed that pill. And they're tracking Dr. Girardi, but they don't know that.
Do they know they're being tracked or no?
Yeah. Well, they know
they
know they can't get away from this guy somehow.
Yeah. And Rios is starting to suspect that the reason why is because he's able to track them.
Yeah.
He's like, every time we jump, this guy's right behind.
They're right on us.
So
Dr. Girardi kind of freaks out a little
jump.
Yeah, they do this like little jump and stop, and they're like hoping that maybe whoever's following them will jump over them, like jump ahead of them.
So, sort of like slipping into the alleyway real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Dr. Girardi flips out a little bit, and she's like, why don't we just Why don't we just
go home?
Go home.
Can we just go home?
Why can't we just go home?
We don't need to. They can deal with. Picard can take care of himself. Let's just go home. And Rios is like, she's like, I've been paid by someone to do this.
He's like,
you came on. We didn't ask you to come on board. You came on board of your own volition. So now you just got to chill.
She's basically having a panic attack, right? Yeah. She's like freaking out.
And Rafi's
she killed Maddox, and she knows why they're being tracked, right? But she can't tell.
It's a lot to handle.
Alison Pill
handle it well.
No, but Alison Pill is a great actor, and
she's
really good in this episode. All of her sort of anxiety and panic attack stuff is really good in this episode.
I just imagine
like, I'm gonna take care of you. Let's go. I'll get you all set up, baby. You listen to Mama Rafi, and we're gonna take care of it. She
sounds like some drugs.
Will there be cake? She's like, will there be cake? Oh yeah, we'll have cake. No problem.
Yeah, you can tell Rafi's thinking like, maybe you need some of my vape pen
or booze or
Gerardi
something.
Is like, what I really would like is a gigantic piece of cake.
I just want cake. Can we have cake? Rafi's like, sure. If that's what you cake, yeah, do cake.
They got a replicator.
Then she gets her cake. Eventually, she's gonna get her cake.
A little while, in a few minutes.
We go back to Nepenthe, and Soji comes up to Riker, who's making pizza.
Yeah. So okay, you have to set the scene. Min, Jake, are you still with us, or have you?
I am.
Oh, okay. I thought you had a hard out.
Yeah.
I'm making my heart out a little soft for you guys.
It was a soft out.
It was not as hard as it used to be. Yeah, when you get old, your outs aren't as hard as they always were.
Isn't that true for everything? Just not as hard as it used to be. Riker and Picard are making pizza. So Riker has like a big outdoor, like wood-fired pizza oven in like in his backyard, right?
He's retiring in style.
Yeah. The house is, I would love to live in that house. It's a beautiful house, and it's got a fucking fancy ass wood-fired pizza oven. So Riker's out there, and he's wearing an apron, and he's just like, you can tell that Riker has really settled into
he's enjoying his retirement.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
He's really having a good time.
Although we find out he's still on active duty or reserve duty.
He's on reserve, but anyway, he's out there and he's like making pizza, and he's like, I've got these great tomatoes that we grow in our garden. I've got this great basil that grows everywhere on this planet. He's like, the planet has.
This is where they talk about the planet got like.
He's like, everything grows.
Super soil.
Yes. He's like, everything grows on this planet. Anything you plant grows on this planet. That's kind of why we came here, which is sort of a hint about the fact that the sun died, and they thought that maybe coming to the planet would help heal him. And he's like, I'm just a cool pizza guy these days. And they're having a little talk, and Riker's like, hey, why don't you tell me what's going on? What's really going on? Jean-Luc's like, I can't tell you. I don't want to get you in trouble. The less you know, the better it will be for you. Riker's like, okay, I'll just stand here and keep making my pizzas. He's like putting slices of tomato on the pizza. You would have liked this pizza, man. It was vegetarian until
sounds amazing.
They put sausage on it at the end, but you could have had
made from some weird rabbit creature that
the girl
Kestra killed with her bow,
rabbit or something, and like skins it.
Wow. Kestra is really young though, right? 12.
Yeah, she looks like she's about 13, something like.
Okay.
Sounds about
Soji and Kestra come out. They're going to go out into the garden, and Riker talks to Soji because he hasn't met her yet, and she does a little like head tilty thing, which is something that Data used to do. Like whenever he thought that something was curious or interesting, Brent Spiner would like sort of tilt his head to the side.
Yeah.
You'll see it a lot. We'll drink every time he does it on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
So anyway,
we got to start coming up with our new drinking games, guys.
We'll drink every time they pull their shirts down.
Anytime Picard is irritated with Wesley.
Anytime Data says he's fully functional.
I do want to do anytime he says engage. Anytime Riker sits down by throwing his leg over the back of the chair.
Anytime he puts his leg up inappropriately on Data's workstation.
Right.
You know how he comes up to Data and just slaps his leg up there next to Data?
He does like that. It's like a power move or something,
You need to make a list, Sean.
I'm working on it.
There are no moments we won't be drinking then.
Well, there's very few moments we're not drinking when we're watching anyways. So.
Make it a short list, maybe.
Yeah. I got a few. I got my ideas.
Can I ask, you had said something about the son was dying and he came there for his health? What was that about?
There's this Riker says that the soil of the planet, the reason everything grows there so well there is because the soil has regenerative powers. So they thought that maybe bringing Thad there would be good for his health.
Yeah.
But obviously it didn't work out because
it did not work.
After they wander away, Riker's like, look, Jean-Luc, I understand that you don't want to tell me what's going on because you're trying to protect me. But let me just sort of tell you what I think is going on.
I think is happening.
And you can just sit there and listen to me. And then Riker basically just says everything that's happened. He's like, that girl is clearly an android because she tilts her head just like Data's. And because you're worried about cloaks, you must be worried about Romulans, which means that girl is on the run and the Romulans are trying to catch her. And the reason you're trying to protect her is because you think she's part of Data. How am I doing so far? And Picard's like, I just got called the fuck out.
Not bad for a pizza chef, says. As I said, how both Riker and Troy dress him down in very specific ways is great. And Jonathan Frakes fucking nails the scene. Yeah, he is so good.
Like, look, I understand that. He's like, this is so you. You think that you get to decide who knows what, who's in the loop, who isn't. He's like, when you're the captain of a starship, yes, you have to make those kinds of decisions, but you're not the captain of a starship anymore, Jean-Luc. So why don't you just let your fucking friends help you, who clearly want to help you? He's like, you don't know what you're doing. You've got this girl. You don't know what you're doing with her. You're completely in over your head. Why don't you just stop being such a closed off wall and let us help you? And Picard's like, that's an excellent point. He's like, yep, good point.
Yep.
It's a great scene. Jonathan Frakes is terrific. Yep. Patrick Stewart's always terrific. Anyway, Soji and Kestra are out in the garden.
Did they also talk about at this point in time about why Thad died?
That's in the next scene.
Is that the next scene? Okay.
Hey guys, I got to run.
It got hard all of a second.
Right.
All right. Well, we bumped up against the soft.
Yeah. I got to run, and I just have one parting question for you.
Yeah, sure.
And does he put the trademark Riker leg up on anything?
No, he doesn't.
He does not.
That was my one disappointment with this episode.
Yeah.
He's beyond that.
All right, guys. I guess I'll talk to you later then.
We'll see you tomorrow, Jake.
We'll see you tomorrow, Jacob.
Next generation, baby.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye, Jacob. Wow, Jacob was totally disappointed with that. I think it's because Riker doesn't need to do that anymore. He's totally comfortable. He doesn't need to prove himself. He has his wife.
Yes, you're absolutely right, man. He's much more relaxed, and he's clearly embraced the rural pizza making dad life. Like you can tell. I loved this episode, by the way. I don't know if we said this before at the beginning, but I thought this episode was terrific.
Sean, it was everything I was loving every moment of it, because it was just everything I wanted from this show. You know what I mean?
Can I clarify? Is it the first part you loved, this part with Troy and Riker, or all around you love this episode?
I mean, in general, I liked this episode a lot.
But it was because of
it's the
Picard,
stuff,
Troy Riker stuff.
It's this stuff that we're talking about right now.
Gotcha.
That's the stuff that really like gets you in the feels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Soji and Kestra go out to the garden, and Troy is out there picking tomatoes.
And she's like, Soji makes it, they're real tomatoes? She's like, yeah, I've never eaten any. She's like, you've never eaten real food? I've never eaten anything that wasn't out of a replicator. So Troy gives her a tomato, and she takes a bite, and she's like, oh my God, it's amazing. It's the greatest tomato I've ever eaten.
What she says, Sean, is it tastes so real, which is which is what leads into this whole conversation about being real or not being real. Because what Soji is struggling with is the question of whether or not she is real, right? Because she's thought that she was a human, and now she's sort of struggling with the fact that she's not a human, that she's an android. And this is a great scene because it shows off that Troy is a really good counselor. Like, even when she can't read somebody's emotions because she can't read Soji, she's absolutely like able to figure out what's going on with her, get right to the heart of it. Like, Troy's a good counselor. Like, she knows what she's doing, because they have this whole conversation where the two of them bond, and Troy is sort of trying to get her to open up. And the way that she does that is by talking about her Troy's son's death, right?
Right.
So Soji's like, so what happened to your son? And Troy's like, well, he had this very rare disease, and ordinarily it would be very easy to cure, but in order to cure it, you have to have access to a positronic matrix. And all positronic stuff got banned because
by the synth ban
on Mars. So because they were not able to get access to a positronic matrix, they were not able to cure their son.
Yeah.
So they have this very sweet little scene where Troy's sort of telling her the story and says to her, just because something isn't real doesn't mean it's not good, you know, because if we had an unreal thing, we could have saved our son. It's a sweet scene. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. Again, Marina Sirtis nailing it.
Nailed it.
Yep. And then do we go to the Borg cube? Oh no, this is where Troy dresses down Picard. So they come up, they bring the tomatoes, and Soji's like, she sort of breaks down. She's like, I don't trust him. I don't trust anybody, and like storms off.
Soji does?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Soji
like,
thinks
I don't trust you. Yeah.
Soji thinks that this all might still
like manipulated.
be a scam, right?
Yeah, they might be. Maybe this is all part of the Romulans' plan to bring her here.
I got fooled by Narek, who I thought loved me, and for all I know, you people are all in on it too. I have no reason to trust you. And then Picard comes over, and Soji kind of like stomps off. And Deanna, this is when Deanna gets to tell Picard what she thinks, because Deanna's like, Jean-Luc, you're not paying attention to what's going on with this girl. She's like, this girl has been through this horribly traumatic experience. She's been manipulated and tortured by the Romulans. She's just found out she's an android. She has no reason to believe you, me, or anyone. And you're not like doing anything to help her get through this. And Picard's like, I need to. And then Troy goes, you need to be Jean-Luc Picard. You need to be compassionate and patient and curious and all of the things that we love about Jean-Luc Picard. That's who you need to get back to being.
Is that Cry 5?
Cry moment number 4 or 5?
Nope. It's not on the list.
So this was my cry. This was my cry moment number 2.
Wow.
Okay.
This was my cry moment too. Yeah.
It's a great scene.
When she tells him,
you
need to be Jean-Luc Picard. You need to be curious and compassionate. I was like, oh, so good. So good.
It's very moving.
It was a very, very good scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then they go off to have dinner. And then, so that's the end of that scene.
Pizza.
Then we're back on the Borg ship, Sean.
Elnor and Rizzo fight.
Oh, really? Like
Hugh and Elnor are walking down a hallway, and Hugh is like, I'm going to take you back to the Queen cell, because if we can get back to the Queen cell, we can take over the cube and get rid of these fucking Romulans.
Right.
Hi,
we
Stan.
can take back the cube.
Stan just got home, everybody.
Hey, Stan.
Hi,
Everybody
Stan.
says hi, Stan. So they're like, we have to get to the Queen cell. We'll be able to like take over the cube. And I'm sick and tired of these fucking Romulans. And then mean evil Narissa and her Romulan cronies appear at the other end of the hall. And she's like, did you think we weren't following you? Of course we were following you. And then she's like, now I have a reason to kill you, because now I can prove that you're like traitors or whatever.
This is
Elnor's like,
this is treason.
Elnor's like, I'll handle this. He like shoves Hugh off to the side. He's like, why don't you let me take care of this? And he like pulls his fucking sword out, and he gives his great line, please, friends, choose to live.
Choose to live.
Yeah.
And the Romulan lady, Narissa's like, oh, okay. I didn't know I was going to have to deal with one of you motherfuckers, but I guess I am. So,
says it in Romulan, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's all in Romulan.
He says the line in Romulan.
Yeah, she replies back in Romulan. But then there's a big fight scene where all the baddies are trying to kill Elnor, and Elnor sort of systematically slices their heads off.
Don't the baddies have guns?
Yes, they have phasers, but it doesn't matter because Elnor was raised by badass Romulan warrior nuns.
Okay.
A phaser is nothing. Don't be
several times.
Elnor. You think Elnor is afraid of a phaser?
I don't know. I suppose not. Is he like a Jedi where he's deflecting them?
Badass Romulan warrior nuns.
No, he just dodges them. He just jumps out of the way.
Wow.
Faster than speed of light is Elnor.
Speed of phasers, definitely.
Well, phasers move at the speed of light.
Yeah.
They are laser beams. Physics.
Yeah.
Anyway, Elnor kills everybody, and then it's just Elnor and what's her face?
Narissa.
And she's like, I recognize you. You're one of those warrior nuns, except you're a boy.
She says something about how do you fight when the Jotval fight the Kawat Malat?
Yeah, who cares about them names?
What a sentence.
So they get into a fist fight, and they're like punching around. And then she pulls out a dagger.
Nice. Yeah.
And you think, oh, she's going to stab him. But instead, she throws the knife and she stabs poor Hugh right in the neck.
Hugh takes it in the neck.
He's been sort of hiding in the corner this whole time. She throws the dagger. She gets him right in the jugular. And he's like bleeding out.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Normally, when you're hiding behind a corner, you get like 3/4 cover at least. That totally increases your AC.
It was a natural.
It was a
nat 20.
She rolled a natural 20.
She really threw that knife perfectly.
Nat 20. Yes.
So Elnor runs over to take care of Hugh,
and Narissa disappears.
Yes.
He beams out.
It's transported.
Because he pulls the knife out of Hugh's neck and throws it back at her. Yeah. But before it can hit her, she beams away.
Beams away. and he tells him to get to the queen cell.
He's like, you're gonna need a Borg to get into
the next beat.
And Hugh dies. Although I don't know if I believe that Hugh is really dead. I'm sort of half expecting Hugh to be
to come back. You think so?
A lot? Yeah, I'm hopeful that Seven. Spoiler alert, man. We see in the trailer for next week that Seven returns. I'm hoping that Seven might be able to save Hugh, because there's been a lot of characters from the old days dying. You know, like Bruce Maddox died.
Egypt died.
Poor Hugh. Hugh is dead.
Died.
There's been
Hugh is now
Picard
died.
is leaving a long swath,
trail of tears,
a trail of death behind him. So I would like to see Hugh pull out, but maybe I'm
bad terminology.
Pull through is what I meant. That's a whole different thing. He should also pull out.
I mean, if you must. Inside Picard, we've got a theme going on tonight.
Back on La Serena, Sean.
Yes. Rafi and Jurati eating cake.
Ah, what sort of cake?
She's on her third piece of red velvet cake.
Gigantic slice of cake, by the way.
That makes
Rafi's like, you want another glass of milk? She's like, yeah. She's like, chocolate? And she says, wouldn't that be overkill? She's like, listen to Mama Rafi. I take care of you. It's her glass of chocolate milk, and she's eating the cake.
I love it.
And we're about to get to vomit number 2.
Oh. Yeah, indeed we are.
Is it Jurati again?
It is.
Yep.
She's responsible for both of the vomits in this episode. So she's eating the cake, and Rafi's trying to like talk to her. And Rafi's like, oh, the reason you're sad is because Bruce Maddox died before you got a chance to like really like reconnect with him. And then Jurati kind of has a breakdown, and then she like throws up the cake.
And it looks like blood.
Does look like blood. Rios is like, is she puking blood? And Rafi's like, no, it's red velvet.
No, red velvet cake.
But it's so symbolic.
She's like, can I have a moment? And
Rios is like, well, we have a problem because the ship that's trailing us is back again.
It's still trailing us.
Yeah.
You need to go fix it. And he leaves, and it's Rios and Jurati. And Rios is like, I think I know why we're being tracked.
Yeah.
She goes, why? What do you know? So I think Rafi, maybe, remember she was down on Free Cloud and she wasn't supposed to come back, but then she decided to come back. And where did she go during that whole time? And what did she do? And I think we need to figure out whether or not Rafi's is the reason why we're being able to be traced. Then he leaves. I think that's the end of that scene, right?
Yeah. So he's telling her, I think Rafi did it. And obviously Jurati knows that she's actually the reason that they're being tracked. So she goes over to the replicator and she replicates
another cake.
Some kind of
phaser.
It's not a phaser, but it's
no. It's one of those injectors that McCoy always used when he was right. To inject a drug into someone. You know, they would like, you know that they would have that little thing where they would like put it up to your neck and it would go, and then you would you'd be injected. She injects herself with this thing, and it causes her to start spasming and foaming at the mouth The emergency medical helegram shows up. And he's like, state the nature of your medical. Oh my God.
Oh, shit.
she's like choking out on the floor. And then we see that
Narek on his ship.
Yeah. And he no longer has the signal.
And she disappears.
So whatever she did, whatever she injected herself with, it got rid of the tracking device. She's done this so that they can get away.
That's a bold move.
Back on Nepenthe, it's dinner at the Rikers. This is the
I got to ask you a question, Matt.
Yep. Did I want a slice of pizza? Yes,
multiple times in this episode, Riker calls Deanna Imzadi.
Sure.
Which I know from watching Encounter Farpoint recently is how they sort of talk. The first time they connect, she uses that term.
Yes.
Do they ever use that term? Is it a fairly common term? He calls her that?
Okay. Well, not so much after they stop. For most of the show, they're not together, right? But Imzadi is like the Betazoid word for lover. So that's that's why he calls her that, or why they call each other that. But for most of the old show, they were not a couple for most of the show. So they don't call each other that during the regular, day-to-day.
Do they have any episodes in the next gen where they do get closer together?
Yeah, they have a sort of on and off again, off again.
Sam and Diane type of thing. You'll learn they had a relationship before they get on the ship together.
Oh.
So it's dinner time at Deanna and Will's house. They are eating pizza. Right. Troy has told Picard, pretend that our dinner table is the ready room on the Enterprise. Because that's where you go to figure out what your next thing, what you're going to do is. So we're going to sit around this dinner table like we used to sit around the conference room table, and we are going to have a conversation, and we are going to figure out what to do together, which is a very next-gen-y thing to do. So they're sitting around and they're eating pizza. Soji finally coughs up the story of what happened to her. It tells them about the dream and about the planet with the 2 moons and the lightning.
The two red blood moons and the lightning.
Basically, they convince her. I'm trying to wrap this up because I know
it's coming up.
So I'm trying to skip ahead here.
Coming up on my hard out.
We're coming up on a hard out. They convince her to trust him. He says to her, look, you're an android. That means you can do all these amazing things. So why don't you detect my heartbeat and detect my pupil dilation and listen to my pulse and decide if I'm lying to you or not.
Yeah, and she does. Tell me if I'm lying.
You tell me if you think I'm lying to you. And she does. And she's like, I can tell that you think that what you're telling me is the truth. And Picard, and then
you think it's true.
Yeah. And then they tell her the story of Data. And they're like, Data was our best friend and he sacrificed himself to save us. And we think that his DNA was used to create you. And that's one of the reasons that we all care so much about you. So anyway, they win her over the course of this conversation.
Convince her to let them take her to that home planet.
But they
all say if the Romulans know, they're probably already on their way there. They've got a head start.
Right. Because they've already figured it out.
Yeah.
So they're like, we have to get there as soon as possible because whoever is on that planet is in danger. Yeah. And Riker's like, maybe you should call Starfleet. And Picard's like, well, I would. But I kind of burned all my bridges with those people. The last time I went to Starfleet, they told me to fuck off. And also, I don't know where we're going. So what's to tell? And then she's like, well, I had this dream about the moons and the lightning. And then Kestra texts her. She has a buddy who's like a former former captain. Yeah. She texts him on her phone and she's like, he knew where it is. And it's like, it's very Deus Ex Machina, but fine, whatever. Who cares? Yeah. They found out where
they've got a location. They know where they're going now.
Now we have to just get there. And conveniently, Rios and the gang show up because they realize they're not being tracked anymore.
Yeah, they
don't know why yet because they don't know that Girardi was the reason for the whole thing, but they know that they're not being tracked anymore. So Rios and the gang are on their way. We get a quick scene with Elnor back on the ship. he's on the run because he's murdered all these Romulans, and Q is now dead, right? So there's alarms going off, blah, blah, blah. He hides under a desk, and underneath this desk, dangling, is one of the emergency communicators to the Fenris Rangers, exactly like the one that Seven
of Nine was wearing.
Picard right before she beamed off the ship. When we saw 7 of 9, before she left, man, I don't know if you remember this. After she killed Bjayzl, or before she beamed back down to kill Bjayzl, she gave Picard a little chip. And she was like, if you ever need me, here's how to contact me. So now we see that Elnor in the Borg cube finds one of those chips. It is unclear where that came from. Like there's no explanation why it's there, but he finds it.
Doesn't really matter. It
doesn't matter. He pushes the button and it lights up and it says Fenris Ranger emergency contact or whatever. So this is how we know that 7 is on her way.
Is coming back.
Yeah. Back to Nepenthe, Riker and Picard. It's the next morning. Riker and Picard are taking a stroll through the woods. They're drinking coffee. They're talking about Picard's new crew. Riker's like, what are they like? And Picard's like, well, they're not like you guys used to be. They're very difficult. And it seems like there's always something really dramatic happening up with
lots of drama. And,
not like the old days when we all just like did our jobs. And
That's funny to me. It's almost like a commentary on the difference between like the Star Trek show nowadays and like the Star Trek show when they did it back then.
It absolutely is that.
Yeah.
100%.
Commentary on TV differences between TV now and TV.
Because I was going to say, one of the earlier episodes, Girardi had gotten with Rios. Yeah, and they would never have done that in even Next Gen, right? That's a very sort of modern, contemporary take on it.
We're going to still remember the second episode, Data fucks Tasha.
Yeah,
episode 2.
That's true. Okay.
But you are right that the point that they're making, Picard's whole point is like, they're not like you guys used to be. They're much more.
They aren't like you guys.
They have a lot more
forward.
Well, they just have a lot more going on in their lives. Like they're much more
drama and stuff.
So they have this kind of sweet little conversation where they're walking along and drinking their coffee, and then they come to this lake, which is it's beautiful lake. Like I don't know where they shot that, but it looked great. And they sit down on this little like gazebo next to the lake, and they have this conversation where Riker's like, technically, I'm still a reserve member of Starfleet, but I'm really happy here. So it would have to be something really important for me to come back.
To drag me away.
And he's talking to Picard. He's like, everybody else thought you should have retired. I never thought you should retire because I know you, and I know that you are you're not the kind of person to like walk away. And Picard's like, yeah, you're totally right. He's like, thank you, Will, for not trying to talk me out of this. And Riker's like, I know better. I know better than
I know better than to try to talk you out of something you got to do. So
that was cry number 5 on my was that scene between the two of them, which is really lovely.
Yeah.
We're zipping through it, but it was a really sweet, nice scene between the two of them. So Soji and Picard are standing outside the house. They're waiting to be beamed up. They hug. Picard and Troy and Riker hug each other. That was cry number 6 on my list.
Yeah.
Kestra runs over and gives Soji the compass from earlier in the episode.
Interesting.
Because they had a scene earlier that we didn't talk about where Soji and Kestra talk, and Kestra's like, I know you don't have a family, but you do have Picard if and he has you. And maybe the two of you can take care of each other if you choose to.
Kestra
so they have
says that.
Yeah, Kestra says it to Soji.
Wow, that's very.
Because she's like, I know what it's like to lose somebody. Because she's talking about her brother who died. She's like, I've lost somebody too, but that doesn't mean you don't have a family. So they have a sweet little moment together. And then they beam up. They beam up.
End of the show.
Picard.
The only thing we didn't say when Jurati zapped herself, she put herself in their coma. So she's not dead. She's in a coma.
But she's out.
But she's out.
Yep.
It was lovely. It was sweet.
Beautiful episode.
I loved every single thing.
Best episode so far.
It was great to see those guys. And they did a really good job. Like it could have been shitty. You know what I mean? Like it could have been
schmaltzy
bad.
And they did a great
it wasn't at all. It was really well done. All right, you're dismissed, Sean. Goodbye.
I'm out.
Bye, Sean. I'm going to talk with Matt a little more because I do have some.
Yeah, you guys have your thing, and I'll talk to you. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bye, Sean.
He's gone.
Matt, I'm curious. It almost feels like they're taking in how Patrick Stewart is in real life, and they're sort of writing in like their personalities, their personas into the show itself. Do you feel like that?
I think yes. I understand what you're saying, and I think that what the show is secretly about is aging. The show is secretly about aging and regret and like how life sort of like changes you as you get older, because they've definitely with Picard they've been doing that, but even in this episode when you see Troy and Riker and you learn that like they've lost a child in the time since we last saw them, and they're getting older too. And so the secret thing about this show is that it's all about time passing and what do you do with the time you have left, and how do you deal with the fact that like tragic things have happened to you, and do you let that sort of like drag you down? And because Picard has let it drag him down, right? He says it in this episode, actually, in the scene where they're all eating pizza. He's talking to Soji and he says, I haven't been living my life for the last 14 years. Yeah, I let what happened, shut me down. But now I'm awake again and I have a mission and I have reason to like keep going on. And so what you do with your life when bad things happen to you and as you get older is like the secret message of what the show is really about.
Wow. This episode, just from hearing you guys talk about it, it's just seemed so sweet, so endearing.
Yeah, it was really great. And not in a like nostalgic, like I don't like nostalgia. I think nostalgia is kind of a toxic impulse.
Sure.
But it was really well done because it wasn't nostalgia like
just for that sake.
Everybody's just the same as they always were. Like all of them were different from the last time
had lived.
We saw them. Yeah. And it felt like you were seeing them. It felt like time had passed that we didn't see, but now you're seeing sort of what happened while we weren't watching. And it was really great. I thought it was a terrific episode.
So my question, and I wish the others were around to answer it, but I'll pose it to you for now, and then I'll throw it at the other guys. We have had a lot of characters now. We've had Picard, we've had his helpers, caretakers on the vineyard, we've had all these people on the ship. Who would you want to be if you could from inside Picard? From Rios to Jurati to Picard to Elnor to whomever.
Well, I would think I would want to be someone young. Like I don't want to be one of these 79-year-olds running around.
No need. I'll get there eventually.
I'm getting old fast enough. I don't need to like accelerate the process.
So you don't need to be Picard.
I'm aging every day. I don't need to jump ahead.
So yeah, who would you be then if it was one of the
hot young Elnor? I mean, that's the obvious choice.
Interesting.
Anybody who doesn't choose Elnor is a fucking fool.
I don't know. I think Elnor would be the clear choice, but I want to say I'm going to choose Jurati because Jurati is going through some crazy shit right now. Like she's never gone into space, so this is like a totally new territory for her.
Why would you choose to be Jurati? She's tortured and miserable.
She had to kill her lover.
And had to kill her lover. Why would you choose to be that person?
I mean, I wouldn't want to actually be that person, but as
that
if
was
I was
the question you
role
asked
playing,
me.
if I was role playing it,
that wasn't the question you asked me. You didn't ask me who did I want to role play. You asked me who I wanted to be.
Yeah. That's I'm still drawn to Jurati though because that's such a
you know what you are. You're fucking drug addict Raffi.
Raffi. Yeah, but you know what?
I forgot to say this earlier, but during that whole scene where Jurati's eating the cake. And Raffi's sitting there watching her eat the cake. Yeah. Raffi's vaping the entire time during that.
The thing with that is I already lived that life. I don't need to relive that life. You know, I could. I just do that every day in my normal life. So yeah, I don't know. I think Jurati's life would be wild.
She's deeply unhappy. Why would you choose to be a deeply unhappy person?
I don't know. I'm just drawn to it. Maybe I'm drawn to darkness. Maybe I'm drawn to pain and brokenness. I don't know.
Okay. Well,
that's my answer. No.
That's a terrible answer.
It might be a terrible answer.
Sorry, but that's a terrible answer. That answer doesn't make any sense. No rational person would choose that answer.
Probably not. Probably, yeah. I suppose my other answer I would choose to be number one. You know, the
dog.
Dog. Yeah. He looks like he has a nice life. You know, I'm
sure. Yeah, he lives on a vineyard in France. He seems happy.
Super happy. Yeah, those are sort of like...
You didn't think of Laris or Jaban, the two Romulans live on the
I did. I did. Yeah. Them being like kick-ass. But then I just thought like, well, they had a weird dark past, you know?
Yes, but they seem happy now.
Yeah.
They seem content with their lives as they are currently living. What about the Romulan warrior nun?
No.
She seemed great.
No. There's no part of nun or monkhood that appeals to me, except when they're making wine. You know, that I could deal with, but everything else just seems so stark and rough. I don't know. But yeah, so Jurati or the dog. You know.
Boy, I don't even know.
I want to hear the Sean and Jacob's answers. Yeah,
that your choices are Jurati or the dog.
Well, okay. Do you want to take us out, Matt? It's been almost 2 hours, and I feel like if Sean had stuck around, we could have gone for another 20 minutes or so.
I had about 20 more minutes worth of material.
What the hell? We are getting so long with these episodes, Matt.
I had 20 more minutes. I can't. I don't control these things.
Yeah. Well, what an episode! What an episode! I can't wait for
terrific episode.
Yeah, I can't wait for Inside Picard to be like 3 or 4 hours.
Well, there's only 3 more episodes left, so
which is crazy to me. I just feel like it's only starting right now. Like like all of these other episodes have been like just build up or exposition almost.
That's how they do television now. Yeah. Like all of these shows, all of these streaming shows are like this now, where it's a ton of build up and then they wrap everything up in the last 3 weeks. You know, it's
You had
just the style of television now.
You tweeted about something where it was like you missed the days when TV was just sort of episodic, is the word, rather than serialized.
Yeah. I tweeted about it the other day, and I also have talked about it on a couple of the podcasts that I've
you've guessed it on.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's something satisfying about they fly in,
mm-hmm.
they have an adventure, and they fly out.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about keeping track of who's doing what to who and why, and you can just tune in, you can just watch an episode, you know. Mm-hmm. It's why people like Law and Order. The reason I was thinking about this is because the guy who does Law and Order, Dick Wolf, just got like $500 million or something like that to keep making his kind of show. And it's like, well, yeah, because people like that.
Yeah.
There's a reason Law and Order is on TV 24 hours a day on one channel or another, because it's very satisfying. If you're just looking for something to watch, it's very satisfying to tune in, watch an hour of Law and Order, see a crime get solved, and then you can go to bed. You know what I mean? Like, there's something really, it's Murder, She Wrote. So
it's almost like having like a complete meal just in an hour rather than like, oh, it's a 12-course dinner that
not everything needs to be a 12-course meal. It can be a short story. It can be a taco. You know?
But Inside Picard is not the episodic. It's definitely you have to follow all of the episodes.
This, you mean Inside Picard? You mean?
Oh, sorry. I meant
because that's true too.
Yes,
you can't just tune in to one episode of this. Imagine tuning into episode 5 of Inside Picard.
Oh,
you'd have no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
Who are these people? What are they talking about? Why are they talking about it?
The Picard show is a serialized show.
Yeah, and so is Discovery, because that's just how they do TV these days.
Yes.
Well, then,
take us out, Matt.
Until next week. Thank you very much for listening to Inside Picard from the creators of Warped. You can follow us you can rate, review, and subscribe to Warped on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram at Warped the Podcast, or on Twitter at Warped Trek. You can follow me at Host Warped. You can follow Min and our D&D and Call of Cthulhu podcasts at Wet Maynard. You can give us money on Patreon, patreon.com/warped, for bonus episodes and additional content. And until then, Min, thank you very much for sticking out with me.
Yeah, you too, Matt. Unlike Sean and
Jake. What a bunch of pussies. You and me stick it out to the end.
Hardcore.
My name is Matt.
And I'm